at what point were you like, you know what, this business is successful and this is a thing? Like in the early stages, it's like, is this going to be a thing? And then with the business, I feel like you're growing it. And it's like, it looks like it could be a thing. Was there a point where you're like, wait, this is a thing?
Well, okay, kind of, because keep in mind now, technically at this point, I only have one business, the Nourishing Vegan, but I
Right.
also have the blog.
Yeah.
I
And I'm
didn't call
interested
that
in
a
the
business.
parallels of how those work together.
I always did them at the same time. I started my YouTube channel before I even started my business, the Nourishing Vegan,
Sure.
because back then it wasn't obvious how you would ever make money from a blog or a YouTube channel. It
Yeah.
was like more you had it was so difficult to just build your subscribers and your viewers and traffic for the blog that's like I'm not going to put on ads. I don't care. I have another
Yep.
business. I
Not
don't
because
need
it's
to.
like not worth it.
It's not worth
Early
it. Who
stages.
cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the blog, off if I was like reading a post about about this yesterday. Um, there's a blog post on my blog, of course, about the recipe is for my vegan crab cakes, and really the whole blog post is like trying to like I'm like advertising my supper club in my house.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
all the photos about that
Like
because
that's the thing you're promoting.
yes, it was
Yeah.
like pushing. I'm trying to push people to the Nourishing Vegan, to my supper clubs. It was called
Yep.
the Little Harlem Kitchen. But that was the goal of the blog. I never was trying to monetize it. But I did the blog and YouTube because it was fun. Like,
Mhm.
why not? Like, I never thought like, oh, this is a burden. I need to stop. This is a waste of time. They just never considered that. It was just
Yep.
fun. It would be great if it grew into something else. So why not just do it?
Yep.
Now, in 2016, I was doing very well with the Nourishing Vegan, but the blog and the YouTube channel, Sweet Potato Soul, was also starting to grow. I don't remember what my traffic was. I don't remember what my subscribers were, but I had started paying more attention to growing my platforms,
Yeah.
specifically the YouTube. I don't remember social media. I don't remember the advent of Instagram, though I was there and I
Yeah.
was posting, but I
Sure.
can't even tell you back then. I have no idea. I don't remember. But the blog and YouTube, I was starting to pay more attention to starting in like 2015. Um, so what happened was I was on the train with a friend who is an author of, I think now she's written 12 books. At the
Hmm.
time it was 10. And she said,
Who was it?
Jenne,
We can give
this
a
is
little.
this is Victoria Moran.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's an amazing. She's a vegan author, but prior to writing mostly about veganism, she's more a self-help spirituality author.
Cool.
And she also lived in Harlem. And we were going home, and she said, "Jenne, I think it's time for you to write a cookbook."
Yeah.
I was like, "Maybe, but who's gonna buy it?" Like my 12 clients. She's like, "Well, you have your blog and your YouTube channel. Like, I think it's like you're doing really well." So she saw that in me, which I didn't think I was ready. She
Yeah.
referred me to her literary agent. He signed me. And then 2016 was like the big year for me.
Hmm.
At the beginning of 2016, I got my first sponsorship deal.
Sure.
I had never reached out to a brand. I wasn't trying to do that, but a brand was the North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission. They
Nice.
reached out to me for a year or 6 month long ambassadorship. That was my first ever paid anything for
Yep.
Sweet Potato Soul.
So that immediately opens the door into
Yes.
like, this is a thing.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's like the other brands might have noticed or something because then after like a month, then I'm like, oh, here's two more brands want to work with me.
Yep.
And it just kind of snowballed. So
Yep.
that was crazy because I'm still doing the Nourishing Vegan. I'm still doing my supper club. I'm still having my cooking clients. So I'm starting to get busier. Then in June 2016, I got a book deal
Uh-huh.
with Harmony, which is an imprint of Random House, Penguin Random House. So that was a big deal too. And so now I'm having even more sponsorships and my YouTube channel is growing, my blog is growing. Like I'm not even really trying. And then now I have a book deal.
Hmm.
So what happened was I just kind of got overwhelmed and I had to start passing my clients off to other private chefs. I was just like
Hmm.
referring them away and saying, I'll be back. I just have like 6 months to write this book,
Yep.
but let me do this and then I'll be back to you like the beginning of 2017.
Yep.
That never happened.
Yeah,
the
because
blog just
things
took
just
off.
kept, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because you had done a lot of work up until that point. Like you had been putting coal into the fire, and it's almost like 4 or 5 years of doing that with no intent. It sounds like with no intent of that being like, please, when is this thing going to take off? But like, hey, I just enjoy
Yeah.
the process of doing this. And eventually there's enough coal in the engine where it started to go
Mm-hmm.
forward. And
Yep.
then it's kind of like, it feels like you're trying to like captain two different, or what, no, what is
Yes.
a train conductor? You're trying to conduct two different
Two
trains.
different trains, definitely. And it's
Yeah.
funny because, and it's not like, but there's no act, it's not an accident, right? That the blog and YouTube took off and then got the book deal. Because I
Yeah.
was very intentional about my business. It's funny, at like the end of 2015 and beginning of 16, I was very much thinking, how am I going to grow my private chef company? I need to bring on other chefs so I can take on more clients. I was
Uh-huh.
getting so much traffic to my private chef company, and I just had to like turn people away. So that
Mm-hmm.
was my focus. But at the same time, I wasn't just being loosey goosey with the blog and the YouTube. I was very intentional. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to post a video every week. I want to do a blog post every week. I got to get better with my food photography constantly. Like, I was very constantly thinking like that.
Yeah.
I just wasn't monetizing it. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
wasn't expecting
Wasn't,
to make
it's not
money
like you're
from it.
reaching out to sponsors. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that, or I didn't have an ad network or anything like that.
Yeah. And I think what I want to point out is like you were really, and you just said this, but like really intentional with it, but weren't trying in the sense of like, oh, I just want to make money from this. I need to make money
Right.
from it.
Because I didn't have
And
to.
and I think that's what's so great is you have, I'm trying to think of a good on the fly like way to brand this, but the best thing I've come up with in the last 60 seconds is like a bridge business. But you
Mm.
built this like bridge between where you are now and where you were before,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a business in the sense that you have complete control, you don't have a boss,
All
like,
right.
but it's maybe not scalable in the way that YouTube or Instagram or these other business units are. But it did allow you, it sounds like, flexibility, autonomy. Like you could, in a season where you have to do the cookbook, pass off some clients to other people. And I love that idea of working first towards like a bridge business to allow you to have kind of the freedom and flexibility, like in your case, to not have to really push to do sponsorships that might have not been a good fit, or to
Right.
monetize too early. Which it's just really cool to see that. And I think the first time that it's been such a clear example of somebody doing
Mm.
that, which is really cool to see. So was it hard for
Mm-hmm.
you to wind down a successful business, or was there enough progress with Sweet Potato Soul where it was like, oh, this feels like the right thing to do? Or is there any part of you that kind of wanted to hang on to that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was very hard. And it's still like, I still have that website up.
Yeah,
It's
I was
like,
going to
and look,
ask what
I
the
still use the email. I
that,
still
well,
use that
that's part of
email.
when I was like, oh, I need to ask about this because like this is the email. And I was like, so this must be like a bigger, but it sounds like
Yeah.
not like
No,
it's
no.
yeah, okay.
My business now is Sweet Potato Soul
Yeah,
LLC. It's not, like I have
yeah,
a whole different business, and it
yeah,
was hard. And even thinking about it now, it is hard. Like, I don't want to, like, there's a part of me where I'm like, oh, I can always go back to that. Or, I just
sure.
cannot for some reason. All that work, even though I
Uh-huh.
haven't done it in like, it's been 6 years. It's been 5.5 actually. I
Yeah,
just
not six,
cannot
five
let
and a
it
half.
go. Five and
Sure.
a half. And I still
Yeah.
update it sometimes. I just can't let it go.
Do you still get people reaching out?
Yep.
Yeah.
About
Like,
once a day. I
oh,
get at
really?
least one email a day. And
Huh.
now, because I was in New York and then I moved to Los Angeles and now I'm here in Atlanta, now I get primarily emails from LA because I've only been here in Atlanta for like 6 months.
Sure.
So now people think I'm in LA. So at least
Yeah.
once a day, I get an email from someone in LA wanting to book me.
Oh,
So yeah,
interesting. So if
yeah.
the last thing on that, before we move on, but what would your advice be, or what did you learn about business with that first stage of kind of your business development in your career?
Mm. I learned a lot about the need to outsource, even though I wasn't doing it.
Sure.
But looking back, especially, everything is clear in 2020 hindsight.
Yeah.
But looking back, I see like how I really could have scaled more and still been able to have the nourishing vegan and sweet potato soul if I were able to relinquish some of that control and hire other chefs and bring on, maybe an assistant to help me, even to just coordinate other people's schedules. I could still technically have that business. And I think that's one of the reasons I haven't let it go, because I'm like, maybe I'll
Yeah.
do it.
Like maybe there's something there. Yeah.
Maybe there's something there still, but definitely that was the biggest thing. If you want to grow, you need to, like you say it all the time and hear it all the time on your podcast, it's not who, but how, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Or
That's
not how,
great.
but who. Is it not how, but
Uh,
who?
not how, but who.
Not how, but
I
who.
idea being for those who aren't familiar. And this actually came up in conversation. It's the name of a book, which I haven't read, but I feel like it's one of those books
Okay.
where it's just the title. Like
Yeah.
that's the takeaway. But I notice of myself, sometimes I'm like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? But as business owners, starting to think about who knows how to do this and go to that
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And an example being, like in my previous life, did IT, and like I actually really like troubleshooting stuff. Like there's a little part of me that's like,
Likes a
anytime
challenge.
yeah, exactly. Like I forget what it was the other day, but something came up where I had to troubleshoot it. It was just like the best. It was 15 minutes of like troubleshooting this tech issue, and I loved it. But it's like I can't do that for, if we have a team of 16 people who have random stuff. So it's
Exactly.
like and we hired a, fractional kind of IT service, and they remote in and they
Yes.
help. And so I think that's a great takeaway. Did you roll
Yes.
those learnings into sweet potato souls? You started to scale that up, and I'm curious to know how the learnings of kind of the first stage or first chapter impacted the next chapter.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I'm still learning,
Yeah,
like
as we all
every
are.
single day, right? It's a learning experience constantly. Um, but yes, I definitely did. Just organization as well was super important for going into Sweet Potato Soul, because like my old business, I in Sweet Potato Soul, it's not just the blog. I've got the Instagram, I've got well, just social media in general. I've got the YouTube channel, I have the blog, I have the newsletter. And so it's like all these little different parts. And so, yes, I had to, grow a team. I
Yeah.
didn't want to, I had a lot of fear around that.
Where do you think that
But
fear came from?
letting go of control,
Yeah,
like just afraid that someone else isn't going to do it as well as I would do it, or they would take, oh, it's such a long time doing it the right
sure.
way that I might as well just do it by myself,
Uh-huh.
you
And
know?
how did you overcome that?
Just letting them do it. It's
Yeah.
truly like hiring people and
Exposure
hiring,
therapy.
yeah, exposure therapy, also hiring the wrong people and
Sure.
thinking, becoming even more afraid that, oh my God, see, confirmation bias. I
Right.
knew it wasn't going to work out, but still, I know, like on an intellectual level, that in order to scale and grow my business, I need to bring in the people who, to help me. So I knew this person didn't work out, but yes, I will find the one who does.
Yeah.
That's a struggle because I'm, like most of us, like all of us, I'm led by emotion primarily, not my
Hmm.
intellect. So it was hard, but yes, I just pushed myself. I did
Yeah.
it.
It's one of those things that I think is a skill, working with people, working with the team, but we don't think of as a skill. And I think there's certain categories that we definitely think of as skills: playing guitar,
Yeah.
skateboarding, like
Cooking.
cooking, painting. And we're like, oh my goodness, like I'm terrible skateboarder, but I'm like, if I could do this for 5 to 10 years, then I'll maybe be a good skateboarder, right? I'm a
Yeah.
bad dancer. 5 to 10 years, maybe I can be doing a YouTube dance
You're right. You'd be Michael
channel.
Jackson.
But I think when we think of like working with a team or hiring, that's something we don't necessarily put in the category of a skill, but I think it is.
Right.
Like we need to get better at it. We need to improve at it. And I remember this conversation I was having with Lindsay. We were driving down the highway and we were talking about kind of next chapter type stuff, where we see things going. This is maybe a year or two ago. or 2 to 3 years ago. COVID kind of warps everything. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying to her, like, I think that I like all the stuff that I've been good at, I kind of have to let go of. And I have to get good at this new thing, which is like figuring out how to work with people. And it's
Yes.
abstract and I don't really understand it. But what I love about some of the things that you shared was this realization of like, hey, you know what? Like, I need to just commit to doing this. I know it needs to happen. And so you just do it and learn
Mm-hmm.
over time. Hey, this did work. This didn't work. And continuing to commit to it. So what does that look like now for you? What are the things that you've learned, and who are the kind of team members, whether contracted, freelance, full time,
Mm-hmm.
that are most important for your day to day?
Yeah. So I hired my first team member in 2019. It didn't work out. But then I actually didn't have anybody else. Also, because I'm shy and because I'm an introvert,
Yep.
I don't want to say I'm shy. I don't like to say that because
Sure. Introvert. Yeah.
I'm over that now,
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
for sure. The introvert is strong.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
just don't like having a lot of people around me.
Yep.
I just rather just work from home, work by myself. That I like that. So that's another reason I didn't want to bring anybody on, because I didn't want to have to
Yeah.
talk to
It's a work
people.
preference. Whereas some people would be
It's a
like,
work
ah,
preference.
more people around me, the better. I want to work with the team. I want to have more calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm the type of person who, because of this, like the way I am, if there are people around, I can sit in silence. However, I'm going to want to entertain you. I'm going to want to like
Yeah.
feed you. I'm going to
Totally.
want to make you laugh. So like,
You
that's
you
like,
have some burden of
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
entertaining,
exactly.
hosting, making people feel
Exactly.
comfortable. Yeah.
And then, of course, when you hire people, for me, I have that. But for all of us, when you hire people, you have the burden of actually having to give them work and pay them. And so
Mm-hmm.
now you are their employer and they count on you. And that's like
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing. Right. And
Yeah.
so I didn't want any of that. So I hired my next team member. I thought she was just going to be part time. The very beginning of 2021, I
Yep.
waited a whole year
Yeah.
till I hired her. And now she's full time. She's been with me since I think January 4th, 2021, just over a year now, full time the entire time. I don't think we ever did part time, maybe for like a day.
Sure.
And she's great. And her role has kind of morphed. At first, I hired her just as an assistant because at the time, my husband, my ex, and we were splitting up.
Uh-huh.
And I was expecting for him to just move out of the house, and I just
Sure.
needed help, like being a single mom, managing all
Yep.
that stuff. Had her. I don't think she ever did any of the assisting stuff because I'm like, well, you know what? I really need you to
Yeah.
do
And
all
she's
this
smart and
business stuff.
capable. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. She's also a videographer. She went to school for that. So
Oh,
then she
cool.
became my videographer and my editor.
Yep.
She's still full time, even though I don't even live in the same state anymore. Now we're in Georgia. She's still full time. She mostly does all my editing. She also does like my newsletter. She does a lot of my social media, not my Instagram. I haven't outsourced that yet, but
Yep.
all the other stuff, Facebook, Twitter, helps me with project management. And when I moved down here to Atlanta, I also hired a videographer here. And he's been amazing. He's part-time and he has his own business. So he does lots of other
Sure.
things as well. And I also hired a part-time personal assistant because now I am a
Yeah,
legit single mom.
totally.
So I
Totally.
really needed that.
That's awesome. One of the so I read this book. I think I put it up there. I won't grab it, but it's called Your World Class Assistant. Michael Hyatt,
Ooh,
who's
yeah.
a he speaks a lot about like leadership and business and whatnot. Anyways, hired Mary, who came on board as an executive assistant. I'm like, how do I even do this? One of the things that was really interesting, Mary's in Michigan, but was they talked about the importance of like that actual like when you're a business owner, it's your work and your life, and those aren't separate. Like it's all mixed together.
I know.
I'm interested to know, well, and the other piece within this is I think sometimes we do think of them as separate. And so it's like, we have our business over here. I need to hire for my business. But I think for some people, a good first step is actually to figure out how can you hire for somebody to help with all of your other life stuff, which you're doing 2, 3, 4 hours, who knows, a day of that life stuff. What was that like for you to hire a personal assistant? What's most helpful about that relationship, and how did you find that person?
Oh my God, it's so helpful. She's a godsend because so first off, what it was like was a little difficult because I have this thing where I don't want, I just want to feed you. I want to take care of you. I want to be
Mm.
your personal assistant,
Yeah, totally. Like it's uncomfortable for you to have somebody taking care of you. Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
can you take the recycling and the trash out for me? Like that makes me
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
grew up, my
Yeah.
mom has a cleaning service and my dad has a commercial janitorial company.
Yep.
So I grew up very blue collar. I started working at,
Yep.
cleaning houses at 8 years old.
Yep.
So that's like my background. So I think I have like a thing about actually hiring somebody to do that. Like I've
Uh-huh.
never hired a cleaning service. Now that I
Uh-huh.
live in Georgia, I have a cleaning service because it's my mom. Like she
Yeah.
does the cleaning. Like
Sure.
I've
Sure.
never felt comfortable for whatever. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
hiring a personal assistant was like that too, because you do like in the job listing, I posted it on Indeed. It's very long.
Mm-hmm.
And in the job listing, I'm just like, you know what? I'm uncomfortable with all this, but I'm going to write it out because then I'll
Yeah.
find someone who is comfortable
Yeah.
with all
It's
of
like
this.
you say, here's exactly what it will be, as
Right.
opposed to saying like personal assistant and like, oh yeah, PS, it's taking out the trash and recycling. Sorry. Like,
Right.
I
Right.
actually, you know
Right.
what? I'll just do it. I'll
Sorry.
just do it. Yeah. But,
Exactly.
if that's like
Exactly.
a line item on the job description. Yeah.
Write it all. Laundry,
Yep.
taking out the trash, clean the kitty litter box, like
Yep.
everything. I wrote everything. What I did, I took like a week to notice what my ex does a lot
Uh-huh.
because I was so busy with my daughter and
Yeah.
just like my business. So my ex was doing a lot of the stuff that my assistant does now. And
Yep.
so I just was like, and he and I worked together with this. Like, what do you do? Like, okay, yeah, clean the litter box
Yep.
because I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
Just together made this very long list, posted it on Indeed. I got a lot of, I did the same job listing in LA and here in Atlanta, literally
Mm-hmm.
just reposted. So I got a lot of interest both times. And the first person I hired in LA worked out great. She's still full time. The first person I hired here in Atlanta did not work out, long story, but didn't work out. So I found another who is my
Mm-hmm.
assistant now, and she's great. She will do all of that stuff. She's very sweet. My daughter loves her because,
Mm-hmm.
we're just all here at home.
Mm-hmm.
And she's helpful with my business as well.
Sure.
That's amazing. She can take
Yeah.
photos for me, which I also put in the listing. Like
Yep.
literally everything I needed her to do, I put it in the
Yep.
listing. She can
Yeah.
take photos. She can read books to my daughter. She can, right now, because she's a lot younger. Great thing about working with like people in their 20s.
Yeah.
She's like way ahead on like TikTok and
Sure. Sure.
Reels and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
because I don't even pay
Yep.
attention. So
Uh-huh.
she's my TikTok girl now. I'll let
Yep.
her do that. That's like her part-time.
Yep.
So she does everything, she does have to do around the house. And then she's like on the computer, like scheduling, like planning my TikToks and like, okay,
Yeah.
Friday, we're going to film this, Jenne, da, 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 da.
That's
So
awesome.
it's great. Yeah.
I think what's inspiring for me to see with your story as it relates to that is this idea of coming up against a complex problem and then figuring out a solution for it. And I think essentially that's what we're doing as entrepreneurs is
Yeah.
it's a never ending set of problems, complex problems
Yeah.
that we're coming up against. And it's both personal and it's work and they're
Yes.
overlapped. And it's figuring out how do we both get what we need in our personal lives and our business, and working with other people to do that. And it's cool to see
Exactly.
that.